When someone ignores you, the immediate impulse for many people is to chase after them, to demand answers, to seek their validation, or to try to reestablish the lost connection. This reaction is deeply human. We crave social belonging, and when that bond is suddenly severed, whether by silence, distance, or neglect, it triggers a fear response. But despite how natural this impulse feels, chasing after someone who ignores you is one of the worst things you can do. It doesn't bring them closer, it drives them further away, and more importantly, it weakens you. At the core of this behavior is a belief that their attention determines your worth. If you felt secure in yourself, you wouldn't feel the need to run after them. But when you chase, you send a message to them and to yourself that your value is dependent on their acknowledgement. And this puts you in a submissive position, a place where your happiness, confidence, and sense of self are at the mercy of another person's willingness to engage. This is dangerous because it allows external forces to dictate your emotional state. If your self-esteem rises and falls based on whether someone else decides to give you attention, you've handed over control of your well-being. Furthermore, people instinctively respect what is valuable and scarce. When you chase, you demonstrate that you are neither. You show them that your time, energy, and presence are freely available to them no matter how they treat you. And paradoxically, the more available you are, the less desirable you become. This is a harsh reality, but an unavoidable one. Human nature is such that we value what requires effort to attain and maintain. When you chase after someone who ignores you, you communicate that your attention comes too easily and therefore is not worth much. Think of it this way. If someone had something precious, whether it be a rare jewel, a meaningful skill, or a deep sense of self-worth, they wouldn't be running around trying to give it to someone who shows no interest. They would hold on to it, knowing its value, and allow those who recognize its worth to step forward. The same principle applies to human relationships. If you carry yourself with dignity and self-respect, those who truly appreciate you will naturally gravitate toward you. Those who don't, they were never meant to stay. Another reason chasing is a mistake is that it often leads to self-abandonment. In your pursuit of another person's attention, you may start to compromise your own boundaries, needs, and values. You may overextend yourself, trying too hard to be likable, agreeable, or accommodating. But bending over backward for someone who has chosen to withdraw from you doesn't bring them closer. It only diminishes your own sense of self. The irony is that people are often more drawn to those who remain steadfast in their identity rather than those who mold themselves to fit someone else's expectations. It's also important to recognize that people ignore others for a variety of reasons, many of which have nothing to do with you. They may be dealing with personal struggles, reevaluating their priorities, or simply incapable of the kind of relationship or communication you seek. Chasing them assumes that their withdrawal is a direct judgment of your worth, which is rarely the case. More often than not, people's behavior reflects their own internal state far more than it reflects your value as a person. What should you do instead of chasing? The answer is simple. Step back, allow space, let the situation reveal itself. If someone is truly meant to be in your life, they will return in their own time. And if they don't, their absence is a blessing in disguise. It means they were not the right fit for the journey you're on. By not chasing, you give yourself the opportunity to see people for who they truly are, rather than who you want them to be. Stepping back also allows you to redirect your energy toward yourself. Instead of pouring effort into someone who is pulling away, invest that energy in your own growth, ambitions, and self-care. Strengthen your sense of self so that your confidence is not dependent on external validation. Build a life that is fulfilling and meaningful, regardless of who chooses to be a part of it. When you do this, you naturally attract people who appreciate and respect you for who you are, rather than those who only value you when you're chasing them. In the end, the way you handle being ignored speaks volumes about your self-worth. You can either diminish yourself by seeking validation from those who withhold it, or you can stand firm in your dignity, knowing that your value is inherent and not dictated by someone else's attention. People will come and go, but the relationship you have with yourself is the one that remains. Choose to honor that relationship above all else, and you will never feel the need to chase anyone again. Staying emotionally composed is one of the most powerful things you can do in any situation, but especially when faced with someone ignoring you. Emotional composure is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending that something doesn't bother you. Instead, it's about maintaining control over your reactions so that external events, especially the actions of others, do not dictate your state of mind. When you allow yourself to become emotionally reactive, you hand over control to the very person who is ignoring you, giving them the power to influence your emotions, self-perception, and overall well-being. The immediate impulse when someone withdraws their attention is often frustration, sadness, or even anger. You may feel the need to demand answers, to lash out, or to make them feel the same pain that you are experiencing. However, acting on these emotions only makes things worse. People who ignore others, whether intentionally or not, often expect a reaction. If you respond with desperation, rage, or self-pity, you are confirming that their silence has control over you. This can lead to a cycle where they continue ignoring you, knowing that it provokes a response, further reinforcing their power over your emotions. Emotional composure allows you to break free from this cycle. It gives you the ability to observe the situation from a place of clarity rather than impulse. When someone ignores you, instead of immediately reacting, take a step back and assess the situation rationally. Ask yourself important questions. Is this person ignoring me deliberately, or are they simply busy with their own life? Is this a one-time occurrence, or is it a pattern? Have I done something that requires self-reflection, or is this about them rather than me? By engaging in logical thinking rather than emotional reactivity, you put yourself in a position of strength rather than vulnerability. Another reason emotional composure is crucial is that it preserves your dignity. When people lose control of their emotions in response to being ignored, they often act in ways that they later regret, sending multiple messages, pleading for attention, or lashing out in anger. These reactions rarely bring the person back. In fact, they usually push them further away. Nobody is drawn to desperation or instability. People respect and are drawn to those who can maintain their composure under pressure. By demonstrating emotional stability, you show that you are someone who values themselves enough not to beg for attention or be easily shaken by external factors. Furthermore, staying composed allows you to respond in a way that aligns with your long-term self-respect. When emotions take control, they often lead to short-term decisions that feel good in the moment but create long-term regret. You may send a message you later wish you hadn't, say something out of anger, or act in a way that makes you feel small. But when you stay calm, you give yourself time to make thoughtful decisions that protect your self-worth. You can choose to disengage, to move forward, or to communicate in a way that reflects confidence rather than insecurity. Practicing emotional composure also helps you build inner resilience. Life is full of situations where people will disappoint, reject, or ignore you. If you react emotionally every time, you will constantly feel powerless. However, if you develop the ability to stay centered regardless of external circumstances, you become untouchable in a way that few people are. This doesn't mean you don't feel emotions, it means you don't allow them to dictate your behavior. This strength carries over into every area of life, from personal relationships to professional challenges. The more control you have over your emotions, the more control you have over your own life. Another key aspect of emotional composure is self-respect. When you remain calm and unshaken in the face of being ignored, you are affirming to yourself that you are enough, regardless of who chooses to acknowledge you. This self-assurance is incredibly attractive and powerful. When people see that their withdrawal does not destabilize you, they recognize your strength. Some may even return simply because they realize that you are not dependent on their validation. But more importantly, you cultivate a sense of personal value that is not reliant on external approval. Staying composed also protects you from making assumptions that may not be true. Sometimes, when people ignore us, it has nothing to do with us at all. They may be dealing with their own struggles, feeling overwhelmed, or simply unaware that their behavior is affecting us. If you react emotionally without knowing the full story, you may misinterpret the situation and create unnecessary conflict. But if you stay calm and allow time to provide clarity, you can respond in a way that is appropriate rather than impulsive. Ultimately, emotional composure is about maintaining your power. It is about recognizing that you are the one in control of your own emotions, not anyone else. The moment you allow another person's actions or lack of actions to dictate how you feel, you have given them control over you. But when you stay calm, when you hold your ground, when you refuse to let external events shake your inner peace, you become someone who is truly strong. And strength in the long run is far more powerful than any fleeting reaction. When someone ignores you, it's easy to assume that you are the problem. The mind begins to race with questions. Did I say something wrong? Did I upset them? Am I not interesting enough? This self-doubt can quickly spiral into feelings of unworthiness, making you believe that you are at fault, when in reality the other person's behavior may have little to do with you. Assuming that you are the problem is not only an unfair burden to place on yourself, but also an inaccurate way of viewing social interactions. People ignore others for a variety of reasons, many of which have nothing to do with you personally. They may be going through their own struggles, feeling overwhelmed, or preoccupied with other aspects of their life. In some cases, they may not even realize that their behavior is affecting you. However, when you immediately assume that you are the cause of their silence, you place yourself at the center of a situation that might not even involve you in the way you think it does. This tendency stems from a deeply ingrained belief that we are responsible for how others treat us. But the truth is, people's actions are more often a reflection of their own inner world than of your worth. One of the dangers of assuming you are the problem is that it can lead to unnecessary self-criticism. You may begin to pick apart your words, actions, and even your personality, searching for a flaw that may not exist. This kind of thinking erodes your self-confidence and can make you overly self-conscious in future interactions. Instead of being your authentic self, you may start adjusting your behavior in an attempt to avoid being ignored again, which only leads to more anxiety and insecurity. The irony is that the more you try to mold yourself to gain someone's attention, the less authentic and appealing you become. People are naturally drawn to those who are confident in themselves, not those who are constantly questioning their worth. Another reason why you shouldn't assume you are the problem is that doing so can make you vulnerable to unhealthy relationships. When you believe that you are always at fault, you may tolerate mistreatment, neglect, or inconsistency from others. Instead of recognizing when someone is being dismissive or emotionally unavailable, you may try harder to earn their approval, believing that if you can just be better, they will stop ignoring you. This kind of thinking can lead to a pattern of one-sided relationships where you are constantly giving while receiving very little in return. People who truly value and respect you will not make you feel like you have to prove your worth. It is also important to consider the possibility that the other person's behavior is a deliberate choice rather than a reaction to something you have done. Some people ignore others as a way to gain control, test boundaries, or manipulate emotions. This is especially true in relationships where one person seeks to establish dominance by making the other feel uncertain or anxious. If you automatically assume that their behavior is your fault, you may fall into a cycle where you keep trying to fix something that was never broken in the first place. Recognizing this dynamic allows you to step back and see the situation for what it really is, rather than personalizing someone else's actions. A more constructive approach when faced with being ignored is to take a balanced perspective. Instead of immediately blaming yourself, pause and assess the situation objectively. Ask yourself, is this a pattern with this person? Do they treat others the same way? Have they communicated any issues with me directly? If there is no clear reason why they are ignoring you, then the best course of action is to give them space rather than assuming the worst about yourself. If someone has an issue with you but refuses to communicate it, that is a reflection of their inability to handle relationships maturely, not a reflection of your value. When you assume you are the problem, you give away your power. You make your self-worth dependent on how someone else chooses to behave, which is a dangerous mindset. Your worth is not something that fluctuates based on who chooses to give you attention on any given day. It is constant, independent of external validation. People's opinions and actions are inconsistent, but your sense of self should not be. If someone is ignoring you and they are unwilling to have an open conversation about it, the healthiest response is to focus on yourself rather than trying to solve a problem that may not even exist. Building a strong sense of self requires understanding that you are not responsible for how others behave. You can be kind, thoughtful, and engaging, and some people will still ignore you. That is not a reflection of your worth. It is simply a part of life. The people who truly matter are those who make an effort to communicate, who appreciate your presence, and who treat you with respect. Instead of wasting energy questioning your value, invest it in the relationships that uplift you, in activities that fulfill you, and in personal growth that strengthens you. When you stop assuming that you are the problem, you free yourself from unnecessary pain and step into a mindset of confidence, clarity, and self-respect. Respecting your own worth is one of the most important things you can do for yourself. It determines the way you allow others to treat you, the relationships you accept, and the standards you set in life. Yet many people struggle with self-worth because they tie it to external validation. They believe that their value depends on how others perceive them, whether people pay attention to them, approve of them, or give them love and recognition. This mindset is dangerous because it places your sense of worth in the hands of people who may not even see your value. True self-respect comes from understanding that your worth is inherent and not something that fluctuates based on someone else's treatment of you. One of the biggest mistakes people make is tolerating poor treatment because they don't fully recognize their own worth. When you don't respect yourself, you make excuses for people who ignore you, mistreat you, or fail to reciprocate the effort you put into a relationship. You tell yourself that if you try harder, they will eventually see your value. But this thinking is flawed. People who truly appreciate you will never make you feel like you have to prove your worth. They will recognize it naturally and treat you accordingly. When you respect yourself, you don't settle for breadcrumbs of attention or affection. You understand that you deserve consistency, honesty, and mutual respect. Respecting your own worth also means setting boundaries. Many people allow themselves to be taken for granted because they're afraid of losing connections. They say yes when they want to say no. They accept disrespectful behavior because they fear confrontation. But boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about protecting your energy and self-respect. If someone continually ignores you, disrespects your time, or makes you feel unimportant, your response should not be to chase them or seek their validation. Instead, you should step back and enforce a boundary that reflects your self-worth. You are not obligated to keep giving your time and effort to people who do not appreciate them. Another crucial aspect of self-worth is understanding that it is not determined by the opinions or actions of others. People will come and go in your life. Some will admire you, some will misunderstand you, and some will treat you poorly. None of this changes your value. Just because someone ignores you does not mean you are not worthy of attention. Just because someone rejects you does not mean you are unworthy of love. Your worth is not a fluctuating currency that rises and falls based on how people treat you. It is something that remains constant, regardless of external circumstances. The sooner you internalize this truth, the less power you will give to people who do not deserve to define your sense of self. Self-respect also involves making choices that align with your values and priorities. When you truly respect yourself, you do not allow external pressure to dictate your decisions. You do not compromise your beliefs to fit in or seek approval. You stay true to yourself, even if it means walking away from people or situations that do not align with your standards. This can be difficult, especially when emotions are involved. However, the long-term benefit of self-respect is far greater than the temporary discomfort of setting a boundary or letting go of toxic relationships. Another key component of respecting your own worth is surrounding yourself with people who uplift and appreciate you. If you constantly find yourself in relationships where you feel ignored, unappreciated, or undervalued, it may be a sign that you need to reevaluate who you are allowing into your life. The people you surround yourself with should reflect the way you see yourself. If you respect yourself, you will naturally attract and maintain relationships with people who treat you with the same level of respect. Additionally, respecting your own worth means prioritizing self-care and personal growth. Many people neglect their own needs in an effort to please others. They pour all their energy into external relationships while neglecting their own well-being. But self-worth is reflected in how you treat yourself. Taking care of your mental, emotional, and physical health is a sign that you value yourself. Investing in your passions, learning new skills, and striving for personal growth all reinforce your sense of self-respect. When you make yourself a priority, you send a message to both yourself and others that you recognize your own value. Ultimately, respecting your own worth is about understanding that you do not have to earn the right to be valued. You do not have to chase people, prove yourself, or settle for less than you deserve. Your worth is not something that others bestow upon you. It is something you recognize within yourself. When you truly respect yourself, you stop tolerating mistreatment, you set healthy boundaries, and you surround yourself with people who see your value. You make decisions that align with your happiness and well-being. Most importantly, you no longer seek validation from others because you already know your worth. When you feel ignored, unappreciated, or undervalued, the natural impulse is often to seek validation. You may feel an urgent need to reach out, to explain yourself, or to demand attention. This reaction comes from the deep human desire to feel seen and acknowledged. However, constantly seeking validation from others can become a destructive pattern that undermines your self-worth and places your happiness in the hands of people who may not value you as much as you deserve. Instead of chasing validation, the best thing you can do in such situations is to step back and give space, not just to the other person, but also to yourself. When someone ignores you or pulls away, seeking their validation only reinforces the idea that your sense of worth is dependent on their response. You may send multiple messages, ask why they are distant, or try to prove your value in some way. But in doing so, you hand over control of your emotions to someone else. Their reaction or lack of one dictates how you feel about yourself. If they respond positively, you feel relieved. If they continue to ignore you, you feel rejected. This cycle can be exhausting and damaging because it places your self-esteem in the hands of people who may not have your best interests at heart. Giving space instead of seeking validation is a sign of self-respect and emotional maturity. It shows that you are secure enough in yourself not to depend on external approval. When someone withdraws, your best response is to do the same. This doesn't mean playing mind games or using silence as a tool for manipulation. It simply means recognizing that if someone values you, they will make an effort to stay connected. And if they don't, then no amount of chasing will change that. By giving space, you allow the other person to show you through their actions, whether they truly care about the relationship or if they were only present out of convenience. Space also provides clarity. When you step back, instead of immediately reacting, you give yourself time to process the situation rationally rather than emotionally. Often, when you feel ignored, your initial reaction is shaped by insecurity and fear of abandonment. You may assume the worst, believing that the person is pulling away because you did something wrong or because you are not good enough. But when you take a step back, You create the opportunity to see the bigger picture. Maybe the other person is dealing with personal issues. Maybe their silence has nothing to do with you, or maybe they are simply not as invested as you are. Regardless of the reason, giving space allows you to observe the situation from a place of strength rather than desperation. One of the biggest advantages of giving space is that it shifts the dynamic of power. When you constantly seek validation, you position yourself as someone who needs reassurance from others to feel worthy. But when you step back and focus on yourself, you send a clear message: I value myself enough not to chase after people who are unsure about me. This attitude naturally commands respect. People are drawn to those who exude confidence and self-sufficiency. When you demonstrate that you don't need constant validation, others begin to see you as someone who is emotionally strong and independent. Additionally, taking space allows you to redirect your energy toward things that actually bring you fulfillment. Instead of wasting time worrying about why someone is ignoring you, use that time to invest in yourself. Engage in activities that make you happy, spend time with people who appreciate you, and work on personal growth. When you build a life that is fulfilling on its own, you naturally become less dependent on others for validation. This doesn't mean you stop caring about relationships. It simply means that your happiness is no longer tied to someone else's attention or approval. Another important aspect of giving space is that it creates the opportunity for genuine connection to develop. Relationships that require constant reassurance and chasing are often built on insecurity rather than mutual respect. When you give someone space, you allow them to make a conscious choice about whether they want to be in your life. If they genuinely care, they will reach out. If they don't, then you have your answer without having to beg for it. This approach ensures that the people in your life are there because they truly want to be, not because they feel pressured or obligated. Ultimately, giving space instead of seeking validation is about reclaiming your own sense of self-worth. It's about recognizing that you do not need external approval to feel valued. People who genuinely appreciate you will make an effort to be in your life without you having to chase them. And those who do not make the effort are showing you, through their actions, that they are not meant to have a place in your life. By stepping back, focusing on yourself, and refusing to seek validation from those who are indifferent, you cultivate inner strength and self-respect. And in the end, that is far more powerful than any temporary reassurance from someone who may not even deserve your energy. Life is filled with challenges, disappointments, and unexpected situations, and how you respond to them defines your character. In every interaction, in every moment of adversity, and in every relationship, your response reveals who you truly are. It is not what happens to you that matters most, but how you choose to handle it. When faced with difficulties, setbacks, or even mistreatment, you always have a choice. You can react impulsively, fueled by emotion, or you can respond thoughtfully, guided by self-awareness and wisdom. The path you take in these moments shapes your character, strengthens your resilience, and determines the kind of person you become. Many people believe that their circumstances dictate their behavior, but this is not entirely true. While external situations can be challenging, your response is always within your control. When someone disrespects you, you have a choice to react with anger and hostility or to maintain your composure and dignity. When faced with failure, you can either give up or use it as a lesson for growth. When life throws difficulties your way, you can either complain and play the victim or find ways to adapt and overcome. The way you respond, not the situation itself, defines your strength, maturity, and character. One of the most important aspects of character is emotional control. People often react impulsively out of frustration, insecurity, or fear. But a strong character is built on the ability to regulate emotions and choose responses wisely. If someone ignores you, insults you, or mistreats you, responding with anger or desperation only lowers your dignity. But if you take a step back, assess the situation, and choose to respond with self-respect, you show strength and confidence. Emotional control is not about suppressing feelings. It is about acknowledging them while making conscious choices about how to act. The ability to stay calm under pressure and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively is a hallmark of strong character. Your response in difficult situations also determines how others perceive you. People are drawn to those who handle challenges with grace and resilience. If you respond to hardship with bitterness, self-pity, or blame, you push people away and reinforce a mindset of helplessness. But if you face adversity with courage, optimism, and a willingness to grow, you inspire respect and admiration. Those who maintain integrity and composure even in the face of adversity are the ones who earn trust, build meaningful relationships, and create a strong personal foundation. Furthermore, the way you respond to others, especially in moments of conflict, reveals your values. If you respond to negativity with more negativity, you become part of the problem. If you let your ego dictate your reactions, you risk damaging relationships and opportunities. But if you choose patience, kindness, and understanding, even when others do not, you demonstrate true strength of character. It takes far more strength to remain calm in an argument than to lash out in anger. It takes more wisdom to listen and understand than to react defensively. Your ability to respond with integrity, even when provoked, is a reflection of your inner strength. Self-respect also plays a crucial role in your responses. If you constantly seek validation, respond emotionally to every challenge, or let others dictate how you feel, you give away your power. But if you respect yourself enough to remain composed, set boundaries, and walk away from toxic situations, you demonstrate self-worth. People who have a strong sense of self-respect do not allow external circumstances to shake their foundation. They know their value and respond accordingly. This is why giving space instead of chasing validation, staying composed instead of reacting emotionally, and maintaining dignity instead of seeking revenge all reflect strong character. Your response to failure is another defining aspect of your character. Everyone experiences setbacks, but how you deal with them shapes your future. If you see failure as a reflection of your worth, you may give up too easily or fear taking risks. But if you view it as an opportunity to learn, improve, and grow, you turn failure into a stepping stone for success. Many of the most successful and respected individuals in the world have faced significant failures, but their response to those failures, perseverance, adaptation, and determination defined their ultimate success. Ultimately, every situation in life presents an opportunity to demonstrate who you are. Your responses shape your reputation, your relationships, and your personal growth. The key is to recognize that while you cannot control everything that happens to you, you always have control over how you respond. When you choose to respond with patience instead of frustration, wisdom instead of impulsiveness, and self-respect instead of desperation, you build a character that commands respect and admiration. Strong character is not built in easy moments. It is forged in the way you handle the difficult ones. Your response, more than anything else, defines who you are.